Hello, humans of the world. It is me, Ellie Krug, on Ellie 2.0 Radio on AM 950, beaming to you from it is sunny today, Eden Prairie, Minnesota. I am thrilled to be back to talk to you about idealism and idealists, and darn, there has been so much that has happened since the last time I taped the show, which was on January 4th. 2 days before the great insurrection. And I'm taping now on the 11th. And who knows what will happen between the 11th, when I'm taping this, and January 16th, when this show actually airs. Although if you are on Facebook Live right now, you are seeing me in all my splendor, and you are getting me live, at least on Facebook Live. I'm going to work on future time lag issues, and try and not have such big lags. But for now, I am here. I am outraged. I am saddened. And I am motivated to change the landscape as much as possible in light of last week's developments. We have a great show. The big interview is with Jen Bowen, the founder and executive director of Minnesota Prison Writers Workshop. And that will be a good break from the stream of bad news that we have been hearing. In my C block, I'm going to talk about my response to the January 6th insurrection and where we go from here. But let's begin with this week's featured idealist, a man named Frank Schaeffer. And I need to give credit to my friend and fellow idealist John Anderson, who I've had on this show a couple of times, for letting me know about Frank Schaeffer. And while Schaeffer no doubt is idealistic, I am highlighting him because of the message he's been sending about the insurrection. The quick bio is that Frank Schaeffer is the namesake of an evangelical theologian who was ultra-conservative. When Schaeffer was young, he and his father were very active and very prominent in the evangelical world, and that led them to meetings with Presidents Ford, Reagan, and Bush, who were courting the religious vote. And up till his early 30s, Frank Schaeffer identified as a conservative Republican and a part of the religious right. In fact, Frank Schaeffer helped produce Ronald Reagan's 1984 book, Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation. Frank Schaeffer also went on and helped to produce a documentary, a 10-part documentary about his father, also known as Francis Schaeffer, which that documentary, Michelle Bachmann, we know who she is, don't we, said that it had a profound impact on her. Ultimately, Frank Schaeffer Jr. came to believe that the religious right was both anti-American and non-democratic, something he wrote about in a 2007 book titled Crazy for God. Schaeffer now considers himself a liberal Democrat, and in his non-religious career, he became more of a filmmaker and an author, and he's authored a number of books, including a book titled Keeping Faith, a father-son story about love and the Marine Corps. But the reason I'm sharing with you about Frank Schaeffer today is that for some time now, he's been warning about how white color, it's not C-O-L-O-R, white color evangelicals have come to dominate the Republican Party. Something that many of us already know. What I did not understand until I listened to Schaeffer was the extent to which these evangelicals are willing to subvert democracy to subvert the basic ideals supporting this country. Proof of that willingness to subvert democracy lies with the rise of Donald Trump. I mean, think about it. Donald Trump is the antithesis of all things Christian. He's an adulterer. He's a liar. He's a cheater. He's narcissistic. He has, I don't think, a single altruistic bone in his body. Sorry about being so blunt. Usually this show is about unifying, not dividing. But yet, with this person, the evangelical Christians have tied their cart. In fact, in a January 7th post in his blog, Frank Schaeffer writes, America's problem is not political. It is religious fanaticism. And Schaeffer doesn't only write the blog, but he also says the blog. He has a video on every one of his blogs has a video, and I'm going to let him explain in his own words what he is talking about here.
I used to be an evangelical right-wing extremist. I quit the evangelical movement and fled. And for the last 35, almost 40 years, I have been a liberal activist that mostly votes for Democratic candidates. My father, Frank Schaeffer, called for violent overthrow of the U.S. government in his last book, A Christian Manifesto, where he said that if Roe v. Wade wasn't reversed and abortion made illegal by democratic means, then we had a right to revolution. Well, last night when the Capitol was attacked, the evangelicals who were in the forefront of that attack were the kind of people who were influenced by him or influenced by people who were influenced by him. My family was responsible, and I was responsible as the nepotistic sidekick of Francis Schaeffer, along with C. Everett Koop, Ronald Reagan Surgeon General, people like Jack Kemp, the congressman and candidate for the vice presidency who introduced me to the president, the folks that helped me like Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell establishing the moral majority for what happened last night. Without evangelical participation, Trump would not be president. If you want to personally thank someone who made Trump president, talk to Franklin Graham of the Billy Graham Organization. Talk to Ralph Reed, the political operative who cashes in again and again and fundraises and makes millions off his evangelical activism. America does not have a political problem. We have a religious fanaticism problem without which none of this would have happened. If it wasn't for evangelical churches, organizations, pastors, newsletters, radio hosts going along with Trump's lies, supporting them, supporting him when he was elected, supporting him through his villainous presidency, and even to today, we would not be where we are. We have squeaked by the skin of our teeth of having a democracy this morning at all. We are only barely hanging on with our fingernails at this point. But the media does not get it. They have never taken the evangelical movement seriously. They talk about the Rust Belt. They talk about Appalachia. They talk about the low pay of working class America. All true, but they ignore because they are afraid to delve into and get into the truth of what white evangelicalism has become, which is a white nationalist, racist movement, xenophobic, myth-based. The theology is a myth. The stuff evangelicals believed in did not happen. The stuff they do not believe in, science, global warming, democracy, did happen.
That's Frank Schaeffer. He goes on to say the evangelical Christians don't want a democracy. Rather, they want a white nationalist theocracy, the American Christian version of Iran. This is, no doubt, a very powerful perspective. So powerful that I actually thought you should hear it, and I thought that we'd play 2 minutes and 47 seconds of Frank Schaeffer saying what he did. Now, I also want my listeners to understand that I am not against religion or against God. Everyone should have the right to worship as they see fit. You just shouldn't be able to use religion as a means of destroying democracy. That's all. And I also know that some of my listeners right now maybe consider themselves evangelical Christians. And hooray, I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you are listening. But please understand this, okay? When we put our faith that should be placed in God or Jesus, but we then place that faith in a man, a totally, completely flawed man, one who has no moral compass, one who does not understand the value of compassion or of listening or of understanding the human condition as others might experience it. When you place your faith and I'm just using the euphemistic you, okay, not my particular listeners, but when one places their faith in a human so flawed, it is inevitable that we are going to have huge problems. The insurrection on January 6th was the manifestation of placing such blind faith in a flawed human. It was. And we in our country right now have a great problem because there is no easy off switch here. None whatsoever. So think about that. Frank Schaeffer, all you have to do is Google Frank Schaeffer. You'll find his blog. He's got a website. He's got a lot of stuff on there that is informative. So he's also been on Rachel Maddow, just so you know. I did screen the guy to make sure he was okay for this show. All right, when we come back from our break, I'll do the big interview with Jen Bowen. You're going to enjoy listening to her, and hope you enjoy the show. If you like what you hear, visit my website at elliekrug.com. We'll be back in a minute. Thank you.
Better Futures Minnesota's Reuse Warehouse has big news. We have a brand new online store. Check out reusebfm.com. This is a great way to see what we carry in the Reuse Warehouse. Appliances, building materials, kitchen and bath fixtures, lighting, flooring, lumber, heating and cooling items. Don't miss the beautiful benches and COVID safety shields that are hand-built using reclaimed wood from our deconstruction projects. Check out reusebfm.com. That's reusebfm as in betterfuturesminnesota.com.
Hello, this is Ellie Krug from Ellie 2.0 Radio on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Many listeners know that I train on human inclusivity and on how to be welcoming to diverse humans. Today, organizations of all sizes find that they need to train team members on equity and dismantling racism. I can do that. Many say that my trainings change how they see the world. And now I'm doing all of my work online, so everyone can attend regardless of where you're located. For more information, go to elliekrug.com. Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you. And we're back on AM 950, Ellie 2.0 Radio. Okay, so Frank Schaeffer, a name to remember, and maybe something, a name to go investigate at his website. All right, well, I've got another name now for the big interview that you're going to want to remember. I have Jen Bowen on the line from me. She is the founder and curator of the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop. Jen, are you there?
I'm here, Ellie.
Thanks for being on Ellie 2.0 Radio.
Yeah,
I need to let our listeners know a little bit about you. You are a writer, and you've had stories that have appeared in The Onion, The Sun Magazine, Kenyon Review, Iowa Review, the Iowa Review. You know, I'm an Iowan, so I am well aware of the Iowa Review. And you've taught at the Loft in the past, and but most importantly, we have you here because of the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop. And I've got to tell you, Jen, the reason you and I are talking is about a month ago, I did a piece on poetic justice out of Oklahoma. And I was so moved by finding out about poetic justice. Again, another writing program started by a woman. And then I just Googled, I'm like, hey, Minnesota writing project or writing programs for prisons. And your program came up. And that is why we're speaking, okay?
I'm glad you reached out.
Yep. Well, I really appreciate you being here. And, writer to writer, I always want to make sure that writers have an opportunity to talk about what they're passionate about in their work. So why don't you, let's start off by explaining to our audience, what is the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop? How did it get started? And what does it do?
You bet. So we are a nonprofit organization that teaches in every adult facility in the state of Minnesota. So there are 10 total, and Red Wing is the youth facility. We're in all of them but Red Wing. And we teach creative writing throughout the year. We run a writers collective in most of the facilities alongside the students. They're sort of independent-led writers collectives that can meet outside of class. We have a mentor program, so once a student has been through the class, they may take up to 4-year one-on-one mentorship with a mentor of ours, and we have a literary journal, a reading series. Basically, we're a really vibrant creative writing community on the inside, led kind of in collaboration with the students that we work with.
Okay, well, you make it sound pretty standard, but it's not.
No, it's...
So there is the story here, and if I understand the story, about 5 or 6 years ago, you started knocking on the door of the Department of Corrections, offering to teach writing to people who are incarcerated. Do I have that right?
Yeah, but more or less. It was closer to 10 years ago, 9 to 10 years ago.
Okay.
Do you remember the summer of the government shutdown?
I do remember that summer.
It was that summer that I started emailing, and I emailed every warden in the state, and just asking if I could come in and teach. And I had finished my MFA, and I had a few publications under my belt. And I'd always wanted to teach creative writing. And of the wardens that I emailed, one got back to me, and that was then Warden John King at Lino Lakes facility, which is a medium security facility, and he's the one that said yes.
Okay, but let's go even back a little bit further.
Sure.
Why? How did this come about, and why?
Yeah. So in my graduate studies, I worked with a writing mentor who had done a lot of work with an incarcerated writer, Damien Eccles, who is now out. But my mentor, David Joss, spoke pretty highly of the experience, and he's one of those men that I just respected so fully and completely that I would have done just about anything he suggested. I mean, he didn't tell me to do this, but I watched him talk about it being one of his most rewarding life experiences. And for somebody who is as incredible as he is, that was a pretty weighty testament to me. So there was that. There was the fact that I wanted to teach creative writing and not composition, which I'd done and didn't enjoy. And I also have a few family members that have been incarcerated off and on, and had done some work in sort of technical trade community colleges with people who were not necessarily coming from families that had gone through years of education. And I myself was the first person in my family to go to college. And so all of those things combined just made me curious about the experience. Yeah. So that's the sort of easy answer, I guess.
Well, it's a great answer. What I love about the fact is that your mentor, David Joss, rippled to you.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yep.
Part of my work is, all of my work is about idealism, but I'm often talking about how we ripple to each other.
Absolutely.
You know, either positively or negatively.
Yep.
And he rippled to you. Does he know about all the work that you've done?
He does. I tell him all the time that I just imprinted on him like a little duckling. And I have father issues, and so he knows that too because he's read all my creative work. Yeah, he's a supporter of the work. He's a good guy.
Okay.
And he absolutely knows. I bring him up a lot.
Okay, so you get into Lino Lakes as your first entry into the Department of Correction system. How did that go? And what happened after that?
Yeah. It was surprisingly easy. And by that, I mean the Department of Corrections in Minnesota does a pretty good job of very actively trying to embrace educational programming. I mean, there are always staffing issues and certainly logistical, bureaucratic things to push, but the people in the system who are educating really appreciate folks who are willing to come in and do that. So I taught one class, and ended up out of that class, 6 people stuck around, and we just kept extending the class because we were having so much fun. It was a survey course of 3 genres, and everyone was revising and everyone was writing, and I was so excited about what they were writing and how hard they were trying that we just really gelled. And so in a lot of ways, I think of those 6 students as co-founders of the org because we just had a really magical experience together. And at the end of that class, we held an in-class reading that the administration came to. and the warden and the commissioner, the deputy commissioner. There were a lot of tears in the room as the folks that I was working with read their work. And I asked afterwards if I could come back and maybe find other writers to join me. And they were really excited about it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know everybody expects the story to look differently, but they truly did say yes from the beginning, which was wonderful because I'm not much of a fighter, It's just, they said yes, and that was amazing.
Well, you may not be much of a fighter, but obviously you're very persistent because the program has expanded now, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Jen, we've got to take a break. But when we come back, I want to hear more about how the program has expanded. But I also want to hear about the transformative experience that writing has done for the people that you're working with.
Sounds great.
Okay. All right. Great. All right, listeners, we're speaking to Jen Bowen, who is the founder and artistic director of Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop. If you like what you hear, visit my website at elliekrug.com. Email me at elliejkrug@gmail. I love hearing from listeners. Follow me on Twitter at elliekrug. When we come back, we'll continue talking to Jen Bowen. Thanks.
I think about my fear of motion, which I never...
Brending Electrolysis on Grand Avenue in St. Paul has been a leader in permanent hair removal for people of all skin types and backgrounds for over 30 years, celebrating diversity and priding themselves on finding the right treatment plan for each client's individual needs, regardless of race or gender. Services include electrolysis, body waxing, facials, microneedling, and permanent makeup. Book your 60-minute complimentary consultation, including a 15-minute treatment today for beautiful, lasting results. Visit brendingelectrolysis.com.
If you're looking to save money on your home or building improvement project, check out Better Futures Minnesota's Reuse Retail Warehouse in South Minneapolis. We carry salvage building materials such as cabinetry, flooring, plumbing fixtures, appliances, lighting, and more, saving you money and saving the planet by keeping these items out of the landfill, by giving them another life. Selections change daily, and we also take donations. Go to BetterFuturesMinnesota.com and look under Reuse Warehouse to learn more. Let us know AM 950 sent you. Better Futures Minnesota.
I wanna hold the hand inside you.
And we're back on Ellie 2.0 Radio, AM 950. Before we took our break, we were speaking with Jen Bowen, who is the founder and artistic director for the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop. And Jen had explained to us right before the break about how she got into Lino Lakes prison for what sounded like a pilot attempt at getting this off the ground. And it was well received. And Jen, take us forward. What happened after that? Because this thing has taken off. So go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So I held a meeting at Hamlin University. They were kind enough to open their space. And I think 30 writers showed up to participate. Yeah. And there were a few that asked if it would be good for your career. And those are the ones I disregarded quickly. And others that just had an interest in the work through Jimmy Baca or, all kinds of other reasons that were a really good fit. And 6 or 7 of us went in the next year from there. And I wish I could name all of them, but Kelly, Nell, Peter, just a really, Wendy, a wonderful cohort of instructors, most of whom are still involved in the program. And we spent a few years just growing. And now we are 25 instructors strong, approximately, I would say 50 mentors working at any given time. And our classes are about 30 hours of contact time each. And so we should calculate sometime because I don't have the number, but tens of thousands of hours in the facility working one-on-one with writers on the inside. And I'm sure you guys know this, the sentence lengths are so long. It is the case that most of the writers we work with, we've been working with since day one.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And many of those folks, no doubt, are people of color other than the white skin color.
Yep, you bet. It's a super racist system, as we all know. And that's been one of the challenges and strengths of the program as we've grown. We've gotten better about learning how to represent the student body that we're teaching. And I'm sure it's no secret to your listeners, but It is an incredibly racist system.
It is, and it has to change.
Yep.
And my hope is that this program that you're doing, I mean, at least humanizes people, who are invisible in our society. And okay, so so it is expanded. You're in all of the adult prisons now, right? In all the
Correct.
adult facilities in Minnesota.
State facilities. Yep,
State
not
faci-
county or federal.
Right. Okay. And hold on, before we do anything further, I want you to plug the organization. How can they find out about you? If they want to send you some money, how can my listeners do that?
we will gladly take your money. If you go to mnprisonwriting.org, there's a tab for donating. You may do it there. And then we also have a very active Facebook presence. Our social media volunteer, Sue Long, is posting on the daily. And so you'll always be up to speed with our goings on by checking out Facebook or Instagram.
Okay. Well, and you'll get an audio file of this interview, and you can put that on Facebook if you want to. So.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So now we've got about 9 minutes left.
Okay.
Now let's talk about the important stuff. The humans.
Yep.
What are you hearing? And how is giving people the ability to write, to share what's inside their heads, how is that transforming them and you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's no surprise to anyone that probably the most toxic part of prison, aside from, the real obvious things, the horrible diet and the
Dehumanization, yeah.
The dehumanization, I think, is possibly the hardest thing to come back from. And I've heard so many students say that that they just forget that they have worth, and that's what the system wants, right? That's basically the overriding goal of the system, or so it seems, to strip people who are in prison of their humanity. And writing is a pretty defiant response to that, because it insists on an individual having a voice and a vision and a dream and a way to articulate all of that. And so I just can't think of a more powerful way to kind of combat the system from the inside than maintaining, your control over your mind and your voice and your heart through writing and reading.
And you have some snippets, right?
I sure do. So we get asked this question a lot, and it's mildly uncomfortable to answer on behalf of students who are, obviously silenced by circumstance and design. And so yeah, we've collected a lot of these, and they're all just so powerful. And I would love to tell you a little bit about the reasons they think writing is important to them while they're locked up.
Sure. Please do.
Yeah. One student, C, who writes primarily prose, says a chance for art to flourish in such a forbidding setting is important, not because the art will be amazing or because it will be sold, but because it helps us feel connected to the world, even if it's a world we have to write ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah. Reese says it's through literature I learn how to live. Jeff is a multi-genre writer. He says, here my humanity and spiritual existence is affirmed and celebrated. It's here I'm rehabilitated, reformed, and corrected. And he puts those 3 words in quotes. Or whatever other penal terms are used to justify placing humans in cages, not by threats and punishments, by the magic and power of sharing stories, encouragement, and love. And then one thing we haven't talked a lot about is the role of sort of just the creative community. So there's the writing and the work on the page, but there's obviously also just something so wonderful inside or outside about having a community. And especially, as you probably know, Ellie, if you're a writer, sometimes that can just start to feel sort of lonely and crazy making.
Oh yeah.
And so a big part of the program is around community building, and we're very aware that the prison can kick us out at any time, and then the folks inside will be left, to function without artists coming in, and which is very doable for them because they are artists themselves. And so I would love to read to you what B says about his creative community.
Okay, please do.
Yeah, to sit in a small, intimate space with other writers who share the experience of my circumstances, who uplift and encourage, who amaze and support, who love and hate my poems. This is how words can become scaffolding. A community of artists raise each other up above the ground, above the unforgiving walls, above time spent silent, to perform tasks that take us to unexpected heights. It's through sharing stories and poems that we build new spaces without walls.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I work with some pretty incredible writers
Wow.
and thinkers. Yep.
How the imagery is beautiful and the word scaffolding. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. No, I really do think that we work with some of the best writers in Minnesota. They have a lot to say. They've got urgency. Yeah, they're incredible thinkers.
Well, and you have, so once a year, at least before the virus, you were having an event at Hamlin, were you not, where at least the teachers were able to read the works of the students. Do I have
Yep.
that right?
You do. So we've held that annual reading every year for quite a few years. This year we were able to hold it virtually, and because of our work with Emily Baxter's We Are All Criminals, we've got a collaboration with her called the Scene Project, where she has featured a lot of student work through audio and video. So this year, for the first time, we've been able to actually show the writers reading their own work.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
and some of
we've
go
had
ahead.
we've had Emily Baxter on the show.
Okay.
Because she's an idealist.
Sure.
I did
She
not
is.
know that she had, migrated out to doing that work as well. Go ahead. I
Yeah.
interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say a lot of our audience members have become sort of cult followers of some of the writers. They love Glitter Squirrel or Bee, or they have the
Right.
writers that they adore, and so often they show up every year waiting to see what what this writer has done in the last year. And this year, for the first time, via Zoom, we were able to show a lot of their faces and have the audience hear them read their own work for the first time, which was really meaningful.
And how is it working with COVID now? I mean, are your instructors still going into the facilities?
No, it's awful. Do you want me to whine about it? Because I would love to. We are teaching remotely, and so there's no internet access in prison, and obviously the infection rate there is substantially higher than on the outside. So they're locked down, and we send packets in. And this spring term, we're converting all of our teaching to recorded video that we're going to send in, that they'll watch on TV channels, and then exchange work
Oh boy,
through
that is
packets and education.
that is so difficult. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is struggling with the pandemic. We're not alone in that, but the isolation and illness is what worries us most.
Yep,
And
yep.
yeah, it's just it's just pretty awful.
So Jen, I've got about 2 minutes left, and I need to ask you this question because everybody who comes on the show gets this question, and that is this: what made you an idealist?
Yeah, I hope that this does not ruin the whole show, but Ellie, I'm not even sure if I am one. I think of myself as a pragmatist, and
That's okay.
I think that this stuff it just makes sense to me. I grew up with a mom who was a hospice nurse and a stepdad who was a special ed teacher, and it seems like you just take care of people. That's just what we do, and to me that seems pragmatic, not idealist.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm here to tell
Yeah.
you it is idealistic.
It's your show. You get to call the shots. But
No, but you
yeah.
know, it's. I mean, you're trying to change the world in a small way, but you are trying to do that. I mean, I don't mean to be diminishing it. It's a big way
Yeah.
for all the folks that you are working with.
Yeah.
In terms of the way society treats those folks, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
but
And I don't think there's an instructor in the group that wouldn't say that they haven't changed our world as well. We learned so much, unfortunately, about isolation and yeah,
right. And so, Jen,
but also resilience. Yeah, go ahead.
no. Can you imagine if we could get these words with a greater traction, with a greater showing to people outside the facilities?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine how we might be able to change attitudes?
I agree. I think it's so powerful. I think a lot of people would be surprised in ways that they shouldn't be, but still would be at the waste that is our carceral system. Just putting people, behind bars, I think, and throwing away the key for indefinite periods of time. I think the world would be really pleasantly surprised at the vibrance that is there.
Okay, well, Jen, I think I could probably talk to you for a whole hour or two about writing and about the impact that it has on humans. I'm a living example of that in the sense that I was a lawyer and only knew how to write like a lawyer, and then I had to learn how to write like a human. And it certainly has changed my life. And I know, and I just want to tell you thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you've done and are doing and what your colleagues are doing as well. And thank you to the people who you're giving voice to, the humans you're giving human voice to. I want to make sure they know that I am thankful for them and for their voices.
We'll be sure to let them know. Thanks for remembering.
All right. Well, thank you for being on Ellie 2.0. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you, Ellie.
All right, listeners, we've been speaking with Jen Bowen, who is the founder and artistic director of the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop. Go and check out their website at mnprisonwriting.org. And if you're inclined, please donate. When we come back, we will do my C block, and that'll be the show. Thanks a lot. We'll be back in a minute. Thank you.
Minnesota's Reuse Warehouse has big news. We have a brand new online store. Check out reusebfm.com. This is a great way to see what we carry in the Reuse Warehouse. Appliances, building materials, kitchen and bath fixtures, lighting, flooring, lumber, heating and cooling items. Don't miss the beautiful benches and COVID safety shields that are hand-built using reclaimed wood from our deconstruction projects. Check out reusebfm.com. That's reusebfm as in betterfuturesminnesota.com.
Hello, this is Ellie Krug from Ellie 2.0 Radio on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Many listeners know that I train on human inclusivity and on how to be welcoming to diverse humans. Today, organizations of all sizes find that they need to train team members on equity and dismantling racism. I can do that. Many say that my trainings change how they see the world. And now I'm doing all of my work online, so everyone can attend regardless of where you're located. For more information, go to elliekrug.com. Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you. We are back on AM 950, Ellie 2.0 Radio. Ellie Krug here. Okay, Jen Bowen, the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop. Please investigate it. I am, and it's not all about Ellie Krug by any stretch, but I am proof that just about anybody can be taught how to write, because I could not write before I started taking classes at the Loft and the Loft Literary Center in downtown Minneapolis. And I've got to tell you, I mean, the idea that you can go into a fortress where humans are treated inhumanely and give them a voice, allow them, help them put onto paper what it is that is in their head and their experience as humans, and then share that with the world. My God, transformative. It really is, for them as well as for the listeners. I just loved getting some of those snippets. Okay. All right. Well, we're in my C block now, where I talk about my work as an idealist, or about life events that happened to me as a transgender person or somebody trying to change the world. And to be honest with you, I am at a loss of words today. I am. As I've said at the top of the show, I'm taping this on Monday, January 11th, 5 days after the Capitol insurrection. And as I watch the images of glass being broken, mobs pushing into the Capitol, and people roaming around and looking for our elected leaders to harm them, I felt a deep, deep sense of despair. It was surreal. I mean, the kind of thing that you'd expect to see in other countries, but certainly not in the U.S.
All right, so whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Of course, none of this should have been a surprise. Trump has forever signaled that he didn't understand how democracy worked. Much less did he care about democratic principles. Moreover, there were so many opportunistic politicians like Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Josh Hawley, who are happy to ride the Trump train. Yet in the end, we are left with human nature. We humans are fearful. We all have core fears, like the fear of dying alone or the fear of getting a life-threatening disease. We all have those fears. But one of the things that most humans also fear is bullies. We do, for some reason. And maybe it goes back to the savannah, and maybe it goes back to the one in the camp that was the one that pushed everybody around. That was the one that, got all the sexual favors and had the first meal. I don't know, okay? But we are all afraid of bullies. That would include me too, okay? And Trump is a bully in the most basic sense. And what many do is to try and please bullies, or to at least just simply go on. So we got here in part because of a big bully with a big megaphone platform in the form of Twitter. The other fear at work here, so one is a fear of bullies. The other fear at work here is the fear of other. Other, not us. You saw that the skin color of 99% of those storming the Capitol, you saw what color it was. It was white. And many white-collar people fear that their towns will be overrun and that their jobs lost to non-white people and or to people with religions other than Christianity. It's an irrational fear, but it does not matter. The fear is what motivated thousands of people to spend hundreds of dollars to get on planes or to drive hundreds, maybe thousands of miles to go to Washington, D.C. with the goal of, quote, taking back our country, unquote. Think about that. And what was behind that? We heard from Frank Schaeffer at the beginning, and a lot of what was behind that was churches. And all you had to do was to listen to the mob, listen to some of the snippets about them praising Donald Trump, as the second coming, as Donald Trump as good and, as good as Jesus. How do we get past all of this? First, we have to get rid of the bully. That seems to be happening. Thank God. We'll see. Second, and you have heard me say this before, and I will continue to say it from now on. I'm sorry, but it's true. Secondly, we have to talk to each other. We do. We need to create an army of trainers and facilitators to go to Greater America, to host conversations where people can talk about their fears and where they can be taught that regardless of skin color and religion or socioeconomic standing, we all of us want the same thing: to be safe physically and emotionally, for our children to succeed. And we all want to love and be loved. We do. All of us want that, regardless of what color your skin is, what religion you practice, who you pray to, how you identify sexually or by gender. We all want those same things. And yes, this is the work that I do. And I have witnessed, I am here to testify, I have witnessed how that work can succeed, how it can change attitudes in people. But we have to do the darn work. We do, and it has to occur on a grand scale, like we've never, ever seen before. Here's hoping to the fact that America is up to the hard work of talking about our fears. But if we continue to run away from that, if we refuse to talk about those fears, I suspect America, as we know and love it, will end. All right, that's another show on a not so positive note. Sorry. A big thanks to my sponsor, Better Futures Minnesota, which gives people a second chance. And a big thanks to my producer, Brett Johnson. Brett's been doing a little bit of hard work today. But Brett, you are fantastic as usual. And my listeners, a big thanks to you. Please, I hope you're enjoying this new time frame. Go out and tell people about the show, please, but go out and do something to make the world better. Tell me about it. Email me at ellieJkrug@gmail.com. I'll be back. Talk to you next week. Bye.